So going into this chapter, I didn't know what to expect, but it certainly wasn't this. What is going on, guys? This is your best friend Binks. Thanks for coming back to hang out with me today. And today we're going to do a quick chapter review of One Piece 1098. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it right here because there's so much to unpack. So with that being said, let's just get right into it. The title of the chapter is called The Birth of Bonnie. And on the cover page, we have cover art requested by Noda. And it's Brook playing his guitar in front of an electric eel. And the electric eel seems to be, I want to say, charging Brook's guitar. But that's not too shocking. But what is shocking is the message that was left on Brook's pants by Oda. It was a message that says he's apologizing for not being able to complete the chapter by the deadline. Now, I'm not one to speculate into people's personal lives, but I'm just going to say this, that maybe Oda was busy. We just came off of 3 amazing chapters. Maybe he needed rest, he needed a break. Speaking of break, we do have one next week, so maybe he can use that time to rest, recuperate, and recollect himself. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Let's just hope he's well. Let's just hope that everything is going well with his family, and we'll push forward. We're going to pick up where we last left off, and that was, if you don't remember, we left off with Bonnie being kidnapped and Dragon being notified. And in the first page of the chapter, we actually have the Revolutionary Army at work. They're liberating the Tumi Kingdom in the South Blue, as well as the Goa Kingdom at the same time. So it seems they're split into 2 factions right now, trying to liberate 2 kingdoms. So they're doing like twice the work, and that's very cool that, you know, you can actually see how they trust each other enough to split into, or they're actually just that large of an army that they can split into 2 factions and liberate 2 places at one time. Also, I would like to point out that since they are in Goa Kingdom right now, which is the home of Dragon, maybe this is where we get Sabo. This is Sabo's intro. And I say that because if we remember in the Ace Sabo Luffy flashback when they were in Great Terminal, or not Great Terminal, but they were in Great Terminal, we actually got a chance to see once Sabo started talking about his flashback that he was picked up by he met Dragon, and he told Dragon that he was ashamed of being a noble. And at that time, Dragon confessed to him that he didn't have the manpower to do anything behind liberating the kingdom, so he had to, wait until he built his army. But that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Now, we also see that KUMA is in the Goa Kingdom with Ivankov, and it appears that KUMA is no longer the sweet, gentle giant we all grew to know and love. And I say that because it seems that while they're trying to liberate Tumi Kingdom, they're getting pushback, and Ivankov is saying, well, we can't do anything, but Kuma's like, I'll go. So he teleports himself to the Tumi Kingdom to actually further along the liberation of that kingdom. And it's just, I think we can chalk Kuma's aggressiveness and assertiveness up to Jenny being captured, and he's not able to do anything about that. So with that being said, we actually do find out that Jenny has been captured over 2 years ago and taken on a world government ship. It is said that she caught the eye of a celestial dragon. Now let's take a step back here and remember that in Sorbet, Jenny was 21 and she was known as the most beautiful woman. It was noted that she was like the most beautiful woman there because everybody was swooning over her, trying to do everything in their power to be with her. But we all know that she only wanted KUMA. But here her beauty actually happened to catch the eye of a noble, and I guess he sent out a command to get Jenny for himself. And with that, he and Jenny are set to wed. However, we don't see who that world noble is, so we have no idea. We speculate that maybe, it's somebody from the Holy Knights, or maybe it's somebody from the upper echelon above the Holy Knights. We just don't know because we don't see who this is. And I mean, let's also take a little detour here and point out the fact that if you remember, this isn't the first time this is happening. So it seems like history is repeating itself because remember St. Charlos, before almost being cut down by Zoro, he actually was doing this very exact thing. He shot a man and told his wife that she will now be his. You see, so it seems that history has once again started repeating itself, and then that's when we get the introduction to a younger Bonnie. And I say it's an introduction to her because we see the younger Bonnie pretending to be Zoro's younger sister, saying, "Oh no, you got shot," pretend to be dead, that kind of thing. So that's gonna tie into the story a little later on. So let's keep moving forward. So we see that a call comes through on a sickly looking Mushi, and it's Jenny saying she's returned to the surface and how she wishes she could see everyone just one last time because the world nobles have let her go after contracting a deadly disease. And as we know, when you radio into Baltigo HQ, Dragon's going to be the one on the call, but however, we know KUMA's listening. So with KUMA listening, he's going to freak out as he hears Jenny's voice. He says, "Oh, you're so just like you to be sick, just your luck." And then he vanishes. He teleports. He's going to pick Jenny up to take care of her. And he goes to the only place, of course, he knows she would be to feel safe. And that's in his church in Sorbet Kingdom. So he gets there and, while he's teleporting, he's getting there to the Sorbet Kingdom. Jenny's saying her goodbyes via Mushi. And she's telling everyone to look after KUMA because he has such a big heart. She knows her time is near. And basically, she says to KUMA, "Kumachi, I have always loved you and I always will." Sadly, KUMA can't hear any of this because he's gone already. He's already rushed to be by the side of Jenny. And once he arrives, Jenny's gone. She's overridden with rock-like scales and blue skin, which is said to happen when you're in contact via direct lighting. So that's the sunlight, and that's also, moonlight. So with Jenny being released and traveling by day, probably it hastened her death, and she had no knowledge of how the disease actually worked or affected her body. So her traveling to get away to freedom may have actually sped up the last little bit of time she actually had left, and there was nothing they can do about it, sadly. And so KUMA is now seen burying her. And just a little tidbit here, Jenny, I remember when we first were introduced to Jenny and they had her name either with a J or a G because they thought it was Jenny or Guinea. But when we see her tombstone that KUMA placed above, it says Jenny with a G, so it's official that her name was spelled with a G. I just found that little tidbit to be interesting. Not saying that it plays a major part in anything. I just like the fact that it was actually solidified. So then we see KUMA step up. And once we see KUMA step up, he's raising Bonnie. Because Jenny didn't return empty-handed. She, unfortunately, wed the celestial dragon and had a baby. And it's not the ideal dream, but KUMA steps up. He's raising a baby Bonnie, and he can't do it alone. So he entrusts the help of the village elders, and they tell him, "Well, KUMA, you're a huge guy. You're a big guy, so you might want to invest in some kind of iron cage or something to protect Bonnie from you rolling over and crushing her." And KUMA, being the guy we all know and love, he actually takes their advice. We see him feed Bonnie. He gives her the name Glutton, just like her mom. And then we see them sleeping. And while they're sleeping, KUMA's arm is resting on top of the cage that the elders told him to get. And I love that panel personally because I feel like in this dark backstory, this is that bit of sunshine, that little bit of hope, that ray of light that can bring out the best in the worst situation. So I would give props to Oda on that kind of writing right there because only he can do something like that. Moving right along though, we see Bonnie start to get older. She's around 5. She starts to develop a scale on her cheek, on her skin, but we don't know where it comes from. And, it's something we could speculate that maybe was hereditary, right? We could speculate it was hereditary. She may have contracted it from her mom. She could have inherited it somehow because of the mixture of the bloodlines. We don't know. So we can speculate that, or we can go as far as to say that if it's something like, airborne or something, maybe on their way out of Merijois, the Holy Land, she actually was coughed on or something, or she rubbed up against a plant. If you touch poison ivy, you can actually contract, the symptoms. You get the rash and everything. So maybe that happened to her. It's all unknown to us right now. So maybe we will get more information the further along we go. But Bonnie contracts this disease as she's looking at it. She's locked away in a church, and all she has are books to read that Kuma brings her from the outside world. Children are teasing her, telling her, you're a monster, blah blah blah. Like, they hold crosses, and they and they're running out in the sunlight because they know Bonnie can't go into the sunlight, and she tries to chase them. Kuma interferes. He says, you can't do that. If you go into the sunlight, something can happen to you. So let's just stay inside. And that's actually something I wanted you to take note of. Like, how did Kuma know that, the sunlight is what hastened the death if he had yet to speak to a doctor and he just saw Jenny and she was like already gone? How did he know that, Bonnie, once developing the scales, had how did he have that knowledge of her not being able to go in the sunlight? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like, how did Kuma attain that knowledge? So back to the story, as we see Bonnie being teased by the kids and everything, and she's saying, like, I hate the fact that they make fun of my scale. Kuma says, you mean your jewels? He calls them jewels. So basically, he gave her her nickname, or her name, the Jewelry Bonnie. And maybe Bonnie takes this into the pirate world, and she says, call me Jewelry Bonnie, in the light of her dad or her mom or whatever may be the case. It's a dear memory to her. Also, we find out that Bonnie actually has about, if she's 5 now, she has 5 more years to live, because the doctor says she won't make it past 10. And when Kuma's talking to the doctor and Kuma repeats after the doctor, oh, it stops after 10, Bonnie overhears it and gets excited and says, oh, okay, well, I'll be better by 10 years old and the disease will subside. And Kuma lies to her and says yes. So he ends up telling Dragon, hey, I'm quitting the Revolutionary Army. I have to find a cure. I have to look after my daughter. I don't want the same thing to happen to her as it did to her mother. Dragon says, I understand. I will reach out to all the doctors I know. Now, what if Dragon knows, just one doctor? Okay? Let's just put it out there. We've seen Dragon having his connections to Ohara. What after the Ohara incident went down, we all saw Dragon speaking to none other than Dr. Vegapunk. So what if this is Oda's way of tying in Kuma, Bonnie, and Dr. Vegapunk's relationship? Here we have a sickly Bonnie, and she's on the verge of death. And the doctor said that her disease is more rare than the amber-led disease that Law had. And we saw that Law was actually saved by Cortisone, and Cortisone gave him a devil fruit. So what if this is Dr. Vegapunk's parallel? What if Dr. Vegapunk was the one to give Bonnie her devil fruit to save her life as well? Because if you remember in Egghead, Dr. Vegapunk always proclaimed that Bonnie was just a child, a young girl, a little girl. And it was always emphasis on that. So what if this is Oda's way of solidifying everything and bringing it back full circle, that this is the only way Bonnie can survive? Because remember, when we see Bonnie, we don't see Bonnie with any dragons or sapphire scales, which is the name of the disease. We don't see her with the sapphire scales. We always see her with a piercing. So what if this is, and we see her much older. So what if this is Oda's way of just tying all of that in? Because Bonnie's going to die, but we've seen in Egghead Kuma's memories. Bonnie says it's been a while since she's been to Egghead Laboratory, because when she was there, it was so run down. So what if this is Oda just bringing it all home for us? That's insane foreshadowing, if you ask me. What do you guys think about that? Do you think Bonnie was saved by Vegapunk and the Devil Fruit as the same way Law was? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. So Kuma asks her, you know, if you can go anywhere in the world, where would you like to go? It's the same line. It's so amazing how Sabaody is just tying into Kuma's backstory. The parallels are uncanny because remember, he asked the same question to the Straw Hats. If you can vacation anywhere, where would you go? And he was smacking them left to right. You know, he sent Nami to the Sky Islands. He sent Luffy off to be with Rayleigh. It's just, everything's tying in. So this is, to me, once again, is just amazing writing. But Bonnie actually says, if I could go anywhere by 20, I want to go to Sky Island. And by 19, I want to visit Fishman Island. Why? Why does she say these things? I have my own theories. I may make a video on that, but you guys let me know down in the comments below why these two places and why those particular ages. She says the Sky Island and Fishman Island. Why? Why do you guys think that is? Let me know down in the comments below. And in the last panel, we have a visitor who returns to the Sorbet Kingdom. Who is that, Binks, you ask? Well, it's none other than the Tyrant King, King Beckery. He's returned and he's still as ruthless as ever. He still has, you know, hatred in his heart. He has division in his mind. He wants to keep the kingdom the way he had it. He wants it to stay divided. The North is thriving and flourishing while the South is perishing. This is what he wants because he still wants the Celestial Dragons to take note, the world government to take note that he is their personal slave, or he is just someone who can keep his word, and he may want to elevate to being a world noble. But we know that'll never happen. So then we get the people asking Kuma to save them because King Beckery is not only coming here to rule again, but he's actually killing people now. So the people entrust their help to Kuma, and this is where the chapter ends, with the people asking Kuma for help. Now, I'm going to speculate here and say that personally, Kuma may end up overthrowing King Beckery for good, and he will no longer keep the Sorbet Kingdom divided. He will unite the Sorbet Kingdom once again, and then he will stop paying the heavenly tribute that King Beckery was paying. And then that's when we will probably see that word gets out that Kuma is not participating in the orders that are being told to him. And this is how he gets his epithet, the Tyrant King, because he stopped paying the heavenly tribute. He's no longer listening to the world government. He does not care anymore. So maybe they cut off Sorbet Kingdom. And that's where we get the Kuma that we met before this. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below about that as well. Do you think that's how Kuma actually gets his epithet? But with that being said, that's going to be my time. I enjoyed this chapter a lot more than I should have. And if you enjoyed it as much as I did, please be sure to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe. Please subscribe. That way when you see my videos pop up, you can say, I got it here from my best friend Binks first. Other than that, until next time, I hope you all have the day you deserve. This has been your best friend Binks, signing off.